times when you're doing the cute drawings, just mastering the types of eyes that you can do will make a huge difference. So very simply, let's start with dizzy eyes. Very simply, you're gonna do 2 spirals like this. The other eye is the one where you're kind of squinting. You just go over like this, following the shape of the cheek, basically, and back up. So imagine that the head, you know, of your little moshi is like this, and you have, this would be like the cheek axe, this would be the middle, so that first line just goes really across the cheek axe. Starry eyes. So basically, anytime that, I don't know, somebody saw something really cute and they're in love, you're gonna make just the basic. You can do them like rounded off, or you can do them really pointy. I feel like the stars always look a little cuter when they're a little round. And then inside, you always have to put your little highlights, because that really does make a difference when you have the highlights. So those are the starry eyes. Then you have the lovey eyes. Oh my God, I am so in love with this new shirt or whatever. So basically just 2 little hearts with your highlights. So your basic eye, so the one that you see most common, is the 2 circles like this. Now in this case, the highlight I am putting on the top right corner, because my sunshine or my light source is coming from here. So let's pretend that there's a little sun. So the spot where it hit first is going to be the biggest one, and it's going to be, think of like the ray of sun, where it would hit first. So this would be an eye where the sun or the light source is coming from in front of me. So it's like right in my face. In this case, I would have the highlights like this. There's different ways of doing it, but this is basically what that would be. Now let's do the sad eyes. This is, I am having such a bad day. I'm so sad. You're gonna do those little lines like that underneath, following the cheeks, your eye highlights, you know, and see how sad he looks because of that. Let's make him mad now. So if he's mad, you're gonna have 2 lines going down like this. Yeah, has to be a little bit more up. And you're gonna have your eye there. See how like that automatically looks mad? I don't know how we would make the mouth, maybe like that, or anyways. Let's do another kind of eye where I guess the light source would be coming from the front as well, or no, it would be coming from top right, but sometimes when I do it top right, I do the biggest highlight on top and then a smaller one on the bottom. But if you want it to look extra cute, you can put 1 highlight on top and 3 highlights on the bottom, like that. Let's do this is such a sweet moment. We would do 2 like that. You would make your eye like that. Yes, I'm not doing this very proportionately. Your highlights like that. And then in here, you're kind of going to fill in a part of the eye and make a little drop like that. And you can do another little drop of water like that. And automatically you have your sad little crying eyes. So cute. We're gonna do the eyes with the light source coming from here. And so in this case, you have your highlight that is top left corner. Let's do one more. How about like cute little girly eyes? Do a shape like this. Another shape like this. And here, you're gonna do your round, which really starts at the end of the shape. I didn't do these equal, so it might look a little crazy. And you're gonna go from where your shape had started here, you're gonna make a line going across like that. And think that your iris is about in the middle. So we're just gonna make it so that it goes below this line here, just a little bit. And in this case, I'm gonna have to color it in as well. And then we would have our eyelashes like that, or wherever you wanna place them. You can do 3, 4. And we're gonna do our highlights, because these eyes just don't look the same without the highlights. And you're gonna color in all of this part black. You're gonna see it looks so much better once it's colored in, because at first when you see it just drawn out, it's kind of like, can't say I love that. And then here you would have some lines like that. Now we have our girly eyes. Now let's talk about the light source, and this would be your sun. In this case, I decided that the sun was here on the left. Think of the ray of sunshine going down in your direction to if the ray goes down like this, it's going towards the middle. The first spot that it's gonna hit is this, right? So this is where you're gonna have your biggest highlight. This is where the first spot the sun hit. So obviously, this spot is really going to be that massively highlighted spot. Then the sun is kind of fading out. The rays are dissipating, right? So around this area, you're gonna have light, but definitely not as much as this area. And then there's a spot where it kind of like goes behind where the sun isn't reaching, because here, don't forget that this is a sphere. This isn't a flat circle. This would be the area where the sun no longer hits. So it would be darker. And underneath, you would have the shadow that's cast by. So if you wanted to make a very accurate drawing with shading and stuff like that, that's just the basic. If your light source was above, and now we're gonna go into the example of the eyes, then picture it. Your sun is going like this. This is where it's hitting. And this is where it's hitting. So from above, your biggest highlight would definitely be here. And then maybe you would have, you know, some little highlights here, a little bit, but nowhere as big as the top one. And if your sun was coming from the right, then it's the same principle as we did here. So it's top right. So think of the rays of sunshine, they're going like that. So your biggest spot would be there, right? If it was, which would be kind of weird, but why would the sun be coming from there? Maybe because it was setting, then your biggest highlight would have been there, right? So that's the principle that you have to have every time that you're doing, when you're thinking of light. So in this case, if I think about my rays of sunshine, he would probably have a highlight here, a big highlight on the top of his head where it hit directly, maybe a little sub-highlight there. And on the leaf, I'm imagining that he would have a highlight here. And the eyes, the highlight, the biggest highlight would be there. You're gonna start off by doing just an oval like that. And then we are going to do the body, which is basically just a shape like this. We're doing a very simple axolotl right now. Here, we're gonna do his little, I don't know what those are called. If anyone knows, let me know. You're gonna do 3 like that. So it's a very easy shape. Curved line, and then something like that going down. And you're gonna do the same thing on the other side, trying to keep it as proportionate as possible. And if it's not, it's really no big deal because no one's judging. We're gonna do our eyes. It helps when you want to do a circle to just do, see how I'm turning my hand like that, and then at some point I just press on my crayon, and it helps me get that circular shape easier. We're gonna do like if he had a little mustache. That's like his little mouth. And about we say that our light source is here, and it's coming from there. So we're gonna do our highlights here. We're gonna give him a little highlight there. He's gonna have one on his tail because it's kind of flipping upwards. So for the feet, you're gonna want to have one that's passing by here and going there. I feel like I did his body a little too far. So that's just that basic little, that little shape right there. We're gonna have another one like that. And that one's on top. So you'll be able to erase this little guide here. Because you always have a foot in the back and a foot in the front, right? We're gonna have another one back there in the back. And then another in the front like that. So now that he's got his little feet, we can do his, I don't know what those are called either. I really need to learn my axolotl terminology. So all you're doing is these little wave patterns like that, and you stop right there. Let's color in the eyes just for the highlight's sake, because I feel like these look so much better once the highlights are done. So that you could see what he looked like colored in, definitely. So let's start. You're going to do a very basic oval. Once you get used to doing the ovals, it'll be life-changing because they're the basis of so many drawings. Do a semicircle, a line here, and then going parallel to this line, you're going to do this. So that is the bottom of your cup. You're going to do your cup handle. So let's do a shape like that, kind of like if you were doing an ear. And then another one like that. So again, a semicircle. We're going to do the tail. We're going to do a line that's following your other line here, okay? And then it's going to drip over the side because what we're doing is the froth that is hanging over the cup. So imagine what it would look like if something was dripping down. You want to imitate. Think of liquid just dripping down a cup. What would it look like? A little thing like that. And don't forget that he has to go over and then back like the other one did. I like to put some little marshmallows in my cup. I'm gonna have some on a skewer as well coming out of here, but I like to have these little tiny marshmallows just peeping out, kind of like, we're floating here and we're happy. So you're doing a little square like that, and he's got his little marshmallow head on the top. And let's do another one like that. He's not over the cup, so you don't want him to go over your cup line. And then these two little guys, we'll just have their two little marshmallow eyes like that. They're just kind of like floating. You could put another one if you wanted to. I feel like that would be overkill for me. These are just the little lines on the cat's tail. And now we can let's do the marshmallow skewer before we finish the cat. So what you're gonna do is try to do perpendicular lines as straight as you can. Ideally, you would have a ruler for this. So if you have a ruler, be more responsible than me. Take out your ruler. I'm being lazy. And now let's do our two little marshmallows here. So the shape is going to be basically kind of like if you were doing a rectangle. You could, if you wanted to, you could start off doing a rectangle if that'll make your life easier. You can do two rectangles like that. And then you could round them off afterwards, because marshmallows aren't rectangular, right? So you want to round off your rectangle like that. And don't forget that he's got his little head. The top is that semicircle. Okay, same thing here. We've got his little head, and the marshmallow is rounded off. Now, the stick you're no longer going to see because it is piercing through the marshmallow. And here, you don't want him to go all the way down. You want to stop a little bit above. So if we were to do it right, the skewer, you could see it piercing through the marshmallow like that. See how that gives that little impression that the stick went through the marshmallow. And now you have your little marshmallow skewer. I have pens flying everywhere. And so let's give this guy some happy little eyes. He's having a great day. I like to give him the little cheeks because I feel like they're just cuter with the cheeks. He's gonna have his little highlight in his eye. And the other guy, let's give him the squinty eyes. Because he's like, ooh, the guy on top of me might fall and squish me, oh no. And there we have it for that. And this guy is going in the liquid. All right, now for the kitty. We're gonna give him his little ears. You can make these as big or as small as you want. There really is no preference to the size of the ears, really. I've seen artists do them all shapes, all sizes. It really doesn't matter. So if you like them big, you can make them big. It's the same thing with the eyes. I like to do my eyes really spread out because I think it makes them look like a little, not a little crazy, but sort of, just a little funkier. So I like my cats and all of my cute characters to look a little funky. And I feel like having the spread out eyes does that. So that's how I do it, but it's always a question of preference. Now we're gonna do his little whiskers. So you're just gonna go down here and you're gonna go up like that, up like that, up like that. And here, the same thing. We're gonna go up, up, now he's got his little cat thing. And let's give him a little one up here as well. There we go. I don't know why I had to go over that line and mess that up, sorry. And now we can do his eyes. I like to give myself a guide for the middle because it helps me also for the nose, for the placement, to try to divide my head like that. And it helps me place my cheeks as well. So I do my cheeks there. And now I'm gonna do my eyes. His little nose, like that. You could give him a little bit more whiskers too. Let's give him a little eyebrow. We're gonna put them here, top corner, and let's give him a lot of highlights. That way he just looks even cuter. If you're hearing noise in the background, it is my daughter on the treadmill, and I don't know why it is making so much noise. And now we have to give him his little paws that are going over the side of the glass. So let's give it to him. Let's go a little bit at an angle like this. And try to do the same thing on the other side so that they're equal. Pause. And now we can go over everything with our Sharpie. And we'll leave the whipped cream white, but we'll give the sprinkles some color. I actually should have done this with the watercolor brushes, because then I could have painted them in and then I would not have gotten the marker marks. I'm gonna go to the contours because I want the middle to be lighter and I don't want to have too much either. So let's start off with about that. I'm just gonna go around the nose though, because otherwise I'm gonna color him in on the sides. Okay, and now with my wet brush, I'm just gonna go ahead and move this around. And these are the Staedtler ones, the watercolor markers, and I feel like they were actually the most expensive markers that I've bought, and they're the ones that perform the least well when it comes to watercolor marker jobs. So maybe that was not the greatest pen to use for this example. I'm gonna take out my Dom's ones and you'll see the difference. A bit of paint to my paper. And now, see how that one is actually spreading? So I am doing it on purpose to hardly put any in the middle because I really want to give that 3D effect. Because you can just put a little and then you can fill in the rest and create like kind of like a shading in the same time. So since my light source was here, I did want this part of the tail to be lighter, so it works out pretty well. And I'm gonna put just a tiny bit of gray on the tops of my marshmallows here. I think I might even have enough to do the handle to match. Ink might spread, so be careful when you're coloring with these Dom's watercolor pens, because they will have a tendency of spreading if you still have water on your paper, because it's the same principle as watercolor. Watercolor is gonna spread. All right, so there we go. We have that. Let's give a little shading to these little marshmallows. Some there. I'm gonna have some black here in the cup. And then this little guy will be all done. Pink instead, like that. Because it's the inside of the cup would be pink. So I'm just gonna give him some of that to try to round him out anyways. Give him a little bit of the 3D effect as well. So that's all done. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial.